to do this as fast as possible because it's 10 p.m. and we have 5 movies to go through.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
Awesome. Alright, we're actually going to start... We don't want to do all bad and then good, so we'll just kind of mix it up a little bit, and we'll start with the Muppets.
Okay.
Muppets Most Wanted, which it was changed from The Muppets Again, which was a horrible title, so... But, nevertheless, the opening song either didn't get the memo, or it was an homage to the original title. It's kind of hard to tell.
Could go either way.
Obviously, the movie starts immediately after the first one did. It starts with the end and fireworks in the sky, and then we pan down and we see the backs of clearly not Amy Adams and Jason Segel.
Exactly.
And then they just walk away and they decide right then and there on the spot that they're going to do the sequel. And they do this great opening number, and which totally sets up a Muppets movie well.
Oh, yeah.
But then I started to get worried after when we cut to the first scene, which is Constantine's prison break.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, you probably know the plot by now. Constantine is a frog that looks exactly like Kermit, except he has a mole. And he's like the most dangerous frog in the world or something.
Yeah.
And naturally, there's a case of mistaken identity, and they get switched. Ernest goes to jail for the Muppets, basically. So...
Yeah.
So, the scene opens with Constantine's prison break, and I didn't like this scene.
Yeah.
It just felt really weird and out of place and not Muppets.
It didn't fit in a Muppets movie at all.
And generally when you see a Muppet in like his full form on screen in a Muppet movie, it doesn't look near as CG as it did in this scene.
Yeah.
This movie got a little CG heavy, which is pretty much what these movies are supposed to intentionally not be.
Mm-hmm.
But that was the only scene that really got to me. And the Constantine character in general is kind of a hit and miss. He might be more miss than hit. The whole metal Jaws thing was weird. I don't know where that came from or why they kept using that.
When later on, of course, they had to throw a callback back to it and say, Fozzie said something like, Kermit, you're like James Bond back there. Mm-hmm. So yeah, there's a connection.
So, basically, what I'm trying to say is not to hate on this movie or anything, but it's a little less your classic Muppet movies like the Muppet movie or Muppet Segment had, or what the classic feel that the 2011 version brought back. Mm-hmm. This one feels more in line with something like Muppets from Space.
Yeah.
Which I believe is probably the most disliked of them. So, but it's not, it's not bad. Like, I mean, I'm not saying Muppets from Space is horrible. I'm just saying it's a lot lower on there. Mm-hmm. But they do manage to bring some of the classic feel to it, which I'll talk about in a second. I'll wait till the end for that in case people want to skip over it for spoiler purposes. But there are apparently it's getting bad reviews.
Yeah, my friends that saw it originally said that it wasn't as good as the original.
I'm kind of I don't know if I'm surprised or not, because I generally try not to take reviews too much into consideration.
Yeah.
But, I thought this was hilarious almost from beginning to end, and it's helped a lot by the cameos, which I'll go through.
Definitely.
And it was what was really great, what I was really, really happy with. Yeah. What I was really happy with was when I heard about the bad reviews and when I knew there was a new Muppets movie, my first thought was, oh shit, pop culture everywhere.
Yeah.
Not a lot, really. No. A couple of cameos are kind of the your regular pop culture people. Mm-hmm. But a lot of them are very unexpected, and probably a lot that like not many people will recognize.
Oh yeah.
At least the target audience, anyway, for sure.
A lot of clueless people in that theater tonight.
And there are references in the very opening number. They put the Swedish Chef in the Seventh Seal.
Yes.
And there's references to like I was expecting references to like, I don't know, insert mediocre recent movie. Mm. We have references to Silence of the Lambs and Shawshank and Duck Soup.
It was really nice.
Yeah, there weren't many references, I thought, that were very, like, obvious. And the cameos were handled really well. Like, they're not... Yeah, some of the cameos are really stretched out, but others are like the, it, like, happens in one frame and then they're gone. Like, in the older movies. There's a great callback to, there's a scene where the gang is under the impression that Walter has quit the Muppets. And they make the joke, we just made a whole movie about Walter joining the Muppets and he's already quitting. And then two recognizable faces come out of the crowd and say, yeah, they could have, put the spotlight on other Muppets, but I guess not.
That was awesome, by the way, especially if you're a fan of old school Muppets and the Muppets 3D attraction at Hollywood Studios.
As far as the human cast, which is a weird thing to say.
It fits for this movie, though.
Obviously you have Ricky Gervais, who is the, he's basically pretending to be their manager, but he actually works for Constantine. And so much so that Bad Guy is his name. Ricky Gervais is always great. A little, slightly, somewhat disappointed. I was really hyped that, well, okay, the story behind the Interpol cop is, he's played by Ty Burrell. He was supposed to be Christoph Waltz, but Christoph Waltz got busy, and just, I think he's in the trailer. I can say he has a cameo.
He's in the trailer. I can vouch for that.
And Ty Burrell got his part. This part is not very big, despite how prominently he's featured.
Yeah.
But, no. If it makes you feel any better, unlike the first movie, or unlike the 2011 movie, he is the only person from the cast of Modern Family in the movie.
Yeah.
It's kind of superfluous for me to mention Tina Fey because I think Tina Fey is perfect constantly. So my bias is going to say I love her. So.
It's like me talking about Carey Mulligan all the time.
So I guess that leaves us with... I wouldn't listen to the bad reviews because I thought it was hilarious.
It's really funny.
With misses here and there, undoubtedly. But now, if you want to, this is much better if you don't know ahead of time. It really adds to the experience and the comedy of it. But in the event that you are curious what the cameos are, I wrote them down as I saw them. So if you want to skip ahead and not know this ahead of time, now's your chance. One of the few pop culture people I noticed in the first musical number was Lady Gaga. Mm-hmm. Despite the fact that she's right next to Tony Bennett, so it kind of cancels itself out.
It's really nice, too. And it says Gaga and Tony on their shirts.
Of course, there's the opening show, when Kermit gets to do his, It's the Muppet Show with our special guest. It's really, really weird to hear Kermit, especially since he's still fairly new to American audiences. To hear Kermit say the words, it's the Muppet Show with our special guest, Christoph Waltz.
Yeah, no lie.
And, I really wish I could remember that guy's name. The really big brown guy that always always has to chase after them in the other movies. But anyway, Waltz dances with him, and they do a whole number.
Sweetums?
That's a problem. I did grow up with the Muppets, but not as religiously as a lot of other people that I know. So I only know half their names. I feel guilty.
It's like the Muppets and Fraggle Rock. I mean, I used to watch even Muppet Babies. I used to watch all the Muppet stuff growing up.
Yeah, the ones that were in... I was into Muppet Babies more than anything, so the ones narrowed down to that show are the ones I know the best. The others are kind of a little... I know some of their names, but not all of them. But anyway, there is obviously the scene where the switch happens. One of the guards that takes Kermit to prison in Constantine's place is Till Schweiger, who you might know as Hugo Stiglitz from Inglourious Bastards, or Mark in SLC Punk if you're that into it. One of my favorite cameos, there's a UPS guy played by James McAvoy, and it took me 3 takes to realize it was him. We meet 3... There's a whole bunch of prisoners in the prison, but we meet 3 that kind of are front and center. We have Ray Liotta, Jermaine Clement, and Danny Trejo.
And Hornswoggle's there too.
Yeah. And Danny Trejo basically playing himself because we hear all the lights are shutting off and Tina Fey's walking down the hallway and she's saying, like, good night, and she says
She's doing the good night John Boy thing.
Yeah. And then you have to kind of listen for her because she's really in the distance by this point, but you hear, good night, Danny Trejo.
I don't think anybody else but us caught that line either because it was silent during that part.
Salma Hayek does the running of the bulls with Gonzo. Toby Jones from out of nowhere is he worked at the museum, I think.
He was a guard.
Yeah, there were so many I started to lose track of them.
I got him here, so we're good.
We see Miranda Richardson in a window, really briefly. That was another one where I knew that person, and I had to think of her for a second. Sean Combs is gambling with them on a train.
Yeah.
In a white suit. I don't know if you noticed this or not, because you didn't react when I thought you would. They go to Ireland for a ballet.
Yeah.
And not many people realize that this actress is Irish, so that's why she was in this scene, in case you needed that explained. She doesn't have any lines, but the ballerina is Saoirse Ronan. I
thought that was her, but I wasn't positive.
There's a newspaper girl played by Chloe Moretz.
Yeah, that was cool.
The guard in the prison that will shoot at you if you try to escape was Stanley Tucci.
Yeah, it was.
Some of the Hunger Games cast in here. There is a prisoner who is on stage who's doing an escape act. And his escape act is to actually try to escape from prison, but that's foiled. That is Tom Hiddleston in weird facial hair.
Yeah, he looks really strange, too.
Oh, my writing got sloppy. Oh, yes, there's a very conveniently placed Usher cameo.
Literally. Celine Dion?
Oh, yeah. She has a whole segment with Miss Piggy. There is a priest at the end, played by Frank Langella.
It was awesome.
And that's the thing, they actually made it look like a big deal. I'm wondering how many people actually recognize him. Galifianakis came back. I assume he's playing Hobo Joe again, but they never really called him by name.
Yeah, he definitely was.
And there's a big reveal at the end of there's a voice we've been hearing the whole movie, and we finally get to see the voice at the end, and I feel really stupid for not recognizing the voice immediately before he was revealed. I'll just leave that at that. So, yeah, it's a lot better than you're probably hearing, for sure.
Yeah, it's good. So,
unfortunately, that's pretty much the only thing I can really highly recommend today.
Oh, yeah.
Now we're on to our next movie. I hope I don't get too many angry fans mad at me.
This is like doing the Gatsby review all over again.
Okay, the next movie is Divergent, which is basically, normally people wait for big franchises to end before they start new ones.
Mm-hmm.
That's why a lot of franchise movies fail. Because, Twilight and Harry Potter kind of happened around the same time. And then as soon as they both ended, we pretty much had The Hunger Games. The Hunger Games came in at the end of Twilight. They're all perfectly placed there together. I have no idea why we're throwing Divergent right directly dead center into The Hunger Games. We are 2 movies into The Hunger Games, we have 2 movies left, and then you throw Divergent at us. I'll tell you why this is a problem. Basically, okay, let me be honest with you. And you might say this is a point against me, but I don't know what else to say.
Mm.
Obviously I didn't watch any trailers for this, I didn't read any books for this. I pretty much had no idea what this movie was until I was sitting in the theater and it came on.
Yeah.
So, only about half the time did I know what the fuck was even happening in this movie. Because, okay. It's one of those, I brought this up with Vampire Academy.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically the same shit from beginning to end. It's just different because they put different terminology of their own in it.
Yeah.
That's how they differ. Because here's the thing. I was telling you, I was basically comparing Divergent to those spoof movies.
Mm-hmm.
You know those spoof movies that pretty much they don't have anything of their own to work with, so they're pretty much just grabbing shit from pre-existing stuff and just throwing it into their movie and using it.
Divergent is a Freeberg and Seltzer movie?
That takes itself seriously.
Ooh.
Because you have... I felt some Harry Potter in there. There's a scene... Okay. Let me try to say this plot. And book fans can correct me all they want. Now that the movie's over, I don't care anymore.
We'll never have to worry about this movie again.
Okay, so now everybody in the world or in this area, whatever, we're basically back in District 12. It's
Yeah.
It's a futuristic dump that people live in, and there are 5. They're called factions. Okay, I kept thinking they were saying fractions, but I wasn't sure.
Factions. Okay. You're right.
They're split up into 5, and each one is something different. Like, one is you go into battle, one is Ravenclaw. So, okay. So, anyway, and when you end up in one of these, I don't know if it's you end up in this one. There's one in particular where, okay, like, there's one where everybody's smart, there's one where everybody's rejects, there's one where everybody fights. I don't know if it's all 5 of the factions or if it's just this one where everybody fights, but obviously you're gonna go into the Hunger Games and you're gonna try to impress Wes Bentley and you're gonna battle for some reason.
Yeah.
The movies are all merging together now. I'm not gonna be able to tell, like, I'm probably gonna completely forget about this movie by the end of the year. While the Hunger Games did feel like one of those book franchise movies, I still remember it vividly. I believe when I did the Starving Games review, I basically talked about the Hunger Games itself from beginning to end, and I hadn't seen it for almost a year.
Yeah.
I'm not going to remember fuck about this, especially since I had to practically slap myself to keep from falling asleep.
Yeah,
which is normally,
that's legit, by the way.
Which is normally not a problem for me. So she goes in with Maggie Q, and she does her test, which will tell her which faction she's in. But I don't know what the fuck happens, but something happens, and apparently she's what's known as Divergent.
Mm-hmm.
Don't really know what that means. I don't know what kind of power that gives her. But
she basically has the power of choice. She's not in one of the 5 factions. She's all by herself.
So she goes to the ceremony where you basically drop your blood into one of them, and that's what you are. Which is basically the sorting hat ceremony. And naturally she meets no personality eyebrows guy. What's his name? Theo James.
Theo James.
Because everybody's making him a big deal. I don't know who the fuck he is. And I don't know if he's gonna be... He's basically this franchise's Gale. He's basically the guy that people are only gonna care about when he's in these movies. Because naturally he'll hate her, and then he'll, berate her for being a rebel, then suddenly her being a rebel is why he'll fall in love with her. And then she'll fall in love with his lack of personality, and they'll make out and screw for no reason. And that'll be that.
That's pretty much it right there in a nutshell.
I need to call out Hollywood for a second. Hollywood, we talked about this earlier this year.
Yes.
When I did my I, Frankenstein review, I politely, as I possibly could, asked Hollywood to stop putting Jay Courtney in movies.
Yes.
Do you remember that?
I definitely remember that.
Okay, well, Jay Courtney's in this movie.
Yes.
With a substantial part. So thank you, assholes. They basically give him... He's basically come to us by way of Stephen Baldwin, and he's basically there to be the enforcer that Theo James isn't when he's trying to bang her. Shailene Woodley. In case this wasn't Hunger Games enough, they put a Kravitz in it.
Looking like Tom Hardy mixed with Billy Zane. Facial piercings.
We have Zoe Kravitz instead of Lenny now, but regardless...
A Kravitz in a franchise.
You gotta have your Kravitzes in these.
Of course.
Why don't they just cut out the middleman? Is it Lisa Bonet that's her mom?
I believe so.
Alright, we'll throw her in. I mean, she's not...
Yep, correct.
They're not together now, but might as well throw her in there just to complete the immediate family. So I don't think you want to throw Jason Momoa in there or anything. That's who Lisa Bonet's with now.
Please no.
So if that's not enough, they decide they're going to throw Inception into it.
Mm-hmm.
Or The Matrix, depending on what direction you're coming from.
For this movie, I'd say probably Inception.
Basically, they plug you in, and you go inside your own mind or something. Or you can go into other people's minds. God forbid Lucas Haas changes the carpet, or you're fucked. So, and sometimes she ends up in the birds when she goes into her mind for some reason. Fire in the background and all.
Yeah.
Somebody blew up a gas station in Shailene Woodley's mind.
She gets stuck in a human water torture cell.
Okay. And there's a lot of people in this movie, which basically means there's a lot of people wasted in this movie.
Oh yeah, big time.
Kate Winslet is like the head whatever. And she's basically the villain. I don't know if that's a spoiler or not. It doesn't really matter. They totally waste Mekhi Phifer, and not in the way he could have been wasted in 8 Mile. I'm talking about wasted his talent. Because Mekhi Phifer's a great actor. If you see watch O.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Mekhi Phifer is awesome, and I hear he was great when he was on ER. And he's good in 8 Mile while we're talking about it. And Ray Stevenson's there, but he kind of has a throwaway part. Her parents are played by Tony Goldwyn and Ashley Judd. That's basically all they do now is play parents.
Yeah.
And they're not... I guarantee... Remember how I said I won't remember this movie by the end of the year?
Mm-hmm.
I guarantee I'll be mistaking Ashley Judd for Diane Lane when I remember this movie.
Oh.
Like, I remember when Tony Goldwyn and Diane Lane were in that movie.
They weren't in a movie together that I'm aware of.
Yeah. Watch Bug if you want to know her talent. We have Miles Teller, who's basically wasted with given the bully part.
Yeah.
Playing, the opposite of what they did in Spectacular Now.
Yeah, exactly.
They're very much not in love in this movie, or alcoholics.
They do fight, though.
Yeah.
Like, legitimately fight.
Like Charlie Hunnam and Rio Higuchi in Pacific Rim.
Yep.
The dialogue is some of the worst I've heard in a long time.
It's bad.
So much so, I don't even have an example. Just the whole fucking thing. Not one line stands out where I said, oh, okay, that's kind of, okay, that worked. Not a single scene of this movie did I take seriously.
Nope.
Like, there's at least one scene in any bad movie where I'm like, okay, if they just had more of that. I didn't want more of fucking anything in this movie.
You wanted it to end.
Yeah, it's 2.5 hours.
That's too long.
It's like 2:20. It's 2.5 with trailers. And it's so, I don't have another adjective. It's fucking boring.
It really is.
Just nothing.
And
it doesn't help that we've seen this goddamn movie so many times now.
I liked the trailer.
We already saw The Hunger Games. We already saw Inception. We already saw Harry Potter.
Can I watch those again, please?
Oh.
But,
so...
Go ahead.
And there's nothing, like, okay, the director did a couple of acclaimed movies. He did The Illusionist and he did Limitless.
Limitless is really good and very underrated.
This movie has nothing unique or special about it, or its vision.
It's bits and pieces of other movies.
Just like nothing. There's not even a good shot in this movie. I can't point one out to you. I got nothing.
No.
At all.
It's supposed to make, they were like targeting it to make $60 million this weekend, and right now it doesn't look like it's going to.
We were at the showing at 4 o'clock, and this is Friday.
Yes.
There were like 10 people in there.
Yeah.
And 2 people that came into the wrong showing.
And weirdly enough, it's funny because that was the movie that probably people were going to think going to take the box office this weekend, because the box is really low, because Muppets didn't really do very well money-wise. But, you look at that, and you look at the fact that of the 3 movies you watched today, that was the one that had the least people in it.
I'll give it credit for one thing. Shailene Woodley does have a little more personality than Kristen Stewart.
A lot more personality than Kristen Stewart.
Shailene Woodley smiles a couple of times.
Yes. She laughs. She emotes.
But no, people are saying just because she's in a franchise movie, she's going to be the next Jennifer Lawrence. That isn't true.
No.
If Shailene Woodley were Jennifer Lawrence, she so would have got nominated for The Descendants.
Yeah, she got robbed for that spot of The Descendants.
Okay. So, like I said, I'd love to sit here and bash Divergent more, but it is now almost 10:30, so let's keep going. Or maybe not. Okay, I'm scared now. I'm sorry. Okay. If you saw the Son of God review, I've talked about the fact that I don't really have a religious point of view. I'm just right there in the middle. I don't care what people want to believe. I don't care what people think. they can do whatever they want. I don't care. I'm not gonna say this is wrong or this is what I believe in. So nothing. I don't believe in anything. I simply believe that God's Not Dead is a fucking weird ass piece of shit. And this is
brilliance.
Okay. First off, this movie's got quite a following.
Yeah, to say the least.
It's had, what, 2 sold out showings tonight?
Yeah, and tomorrow, as it right now, it stands, there's at least 2, if not 3 or 4, that are already sold out right now.
We were in the very first showing, and there was a lot of people in there.
For a 1:20 showing on a Friday, yeah, that was a lot of people.
That's usually when we go because there's nobody there.
Exactly.
So, what this movie has a weird plot, but apparently it's like a real problem.
It's a true story.
So, of course. So, they give you like a whole list of schools this has happened in, apparently.
Yeah.
So what happens is, we have this kid, okay. This is basically the crash of religious movies. Because we're introduced to a shitload of people, and we don't know what their purpose is.
Nope.
And they all have links to each other we learn throughout the movie. So, notice I didn't use Magnolia.
Yeah, I noticed.
So, not that I have anything against Crash, but that's a whole other video we've already done.
Yes.
So, what God's Not Dead is, the main story, without going into all the other characters.
So, Superman, Hercules, and Spencer from Good Luck Charlie walk into a church.
So we have this kid who is going to this college, and he takes a class, and he's Christian, he's very religious.
He's got his cross on his Newsboys shirt.
And the guy even warns him, he's like, I wouldn't. So, just
that, I wouldn't.
So, he goes in, and the teacher is Kevin Sorbo.
Yeah, it is.
And Kevin Sorbo is extremely, extremely, extremely atheist. Or so we think.
Supposedly.
So, he basically runs this class. It's a philosophy class, basically. And he's talking about how all the great philosophers are atheists, and were. So, he says, the absolute very first thing you have to do if you're going to take this class is admit to yourself that God doesn't exist. So, the assignment is to write God is dead on a piece of paper, sign it, and hand it into him.
First off, how can people read your writing and know who's wrote it and who didn't?
Well, he's probably watching or something. It was the across thing. But anyway, and of course we get to this one kid. Every single person in the class has no problem doing this. Even the people that do believe say, fuck it.
Some guys put like lowercase g's. He said that's extra credit.
This kid just will not do it. He can't bring himself to do it. So, Kevin Sorbo is extremely offended and basically wants to challenge this kid. He wants to beat his ass, but he challenges him instead verbally. There's actually a scene where he grabs him in the hallway and says, don't you embarrass me in front of my class. Thought he was going to deck him, but then he would have been arrested and maybe would have gone a whole different direction. Would have been last night's courage.
Yeah, exactly.
He went to prison.
Yeah, he did.
So,
still there.
If only. So anyway, he challenges him to a debate. He basically says, you can take my podium for 20 minutes for the next 3 weeks and try to convince the class that God does exist. And I will counter you if need be. So that's basically what the main plot is. We have all these other different characters. We have a reporter that has cancer. We have a girl who is shunned because she is not the same religion as her family. We have a priest who can't get a car to start.
With a missionary and them trying to get to Florida.
Yeah. Am I missing something? We have a girl whose life sucks because her boyfriend is Kevin Sorbo, who we've already learned is a douchebag, and her brother is Dean Cain, who is the most overtop douchiness I think I've ever seen in a movie.
I would say so.
Because he's having fun with the reporter. So, and he says, I was like, this movie's PG. Dean Cain, you're making innuendos here.
You can't do that.
So they're sitting at dinner. This is how over the top Dean Cain's douchiness is. Are you ready? First off, he's the guy who's in the suit and says his own name when you call him. It's like You Got Stu from Phone Booth.
Yes.
And he has his legs up on his desk and he just kind of says, fuck you everybody all day. That's his job, is to sit behind his desk and say fuck you everybody to call.
We don't even know what he does either. That's never mentioned either. He just sits behind a desk.
So, this girl goes to the doctor And it's so busy she's barely listening to the doctor when he tells her she has cancer. So she goes and she meets up with Dean Cain, and he's like, great news, and she's like, I got news too. And he's like, well, I'm going first. It was like the scene in Bruce Almighty.
Yeah.
And he says, I got partner. We don't know of what, but it's a great thing when you get partner or whatever.
Yeah, apparently he's made partner in his firm, whatever that means.
And she's like, oh, I got cancer. And
I love the line, too.
And he says, could this not have waited until tomorrow? This was my moment. And he breaks up with her because she has cancer. And because he had plans. That he's not going to be able to fulfill with her because she's going to die on him.
Yeah.
So, oh yeah, I completely forgot to mention that. I was going to start the review with this, but I remember it now, so I'll go ahead and say it. This is kind of a spoiler, but it doesn't matter either. Basically, what this movie is trying to tell us, what this movie's absolute message is, what this whole 2 hours of movie was trying to reach this whole time was, if you do not believe in God, you are going to get hit by a car and die in the rain. It is going to start raining on you, and you will get hit by a car and you will die. Blood will fill your lungs from your broken ribs.
Yes.
They go into detail here, and you will die on the road. That's basically what this movie's message is.
I was in a vehicle accident in the rain, mind you, and the first thing I was worried about was, am I getting wet right now?
Okay. Now, anyway, I will say this. I didn't really know this guy. You brought his name up a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently he was Hercules once.
Yeah.
This guy, Kevin Sorbo, I wasn't really sure. He's probably in like some old 80s movies I've seen that I don't remember. But this guy's a pretty good actor, actually.
He's not bad.
Like, he's like the one... Like, I was really surprised while watching this movie because I was like, well, this is one of those made-for-TV... let's get together and pray movies. And I was like, who's this guy? He's like really good. Like, I would, like, if this guy is actually religious in real life, the way he plays an atheist is so convincing, it would blow my mind. He'd be almost Oscar worthy. And he really amps up the douchiness well. He doesn't do it campy or over the top like Dean Cain does. This guy is a very believable douche.
Yeah.
And he's very believable as a teacher too. Like those condescending teachers that you don't like. But
everybody's had a teacher like this.
where you do kind of respect him, but you can't help but get over the fact that he's a major douchebag. There's actually a scene where he comes home to his girlfriend, and he's in like his suit's like halfway off because he's home from work now, and it's time to just say screw it, have some wine, and do whatever. And they get into a little fight, and his douchiness starts to amp up a little bit.
Big time.
And then he just kind of starts to walk out of the room and goes, I'm going to go freshen up. You fix dinner. I completely forgot what kind of movie I was watching for a split second. And the way he walked away with his suit like that and with his douche aura and his goatee, and he walked away and said, I'm going to freshen up. I seriously expected the very next scene to be him in the bathroom snorting cocaine.
What 70s song was playing in your head?
Hurdy-gurdy, man.
That'll work.
I think that's the 60s, but whatever. So, I don't know. Okay, this movie does have its moments for sure, but not a lot. They're mostly beaten down by the fact that this is clearly a TV movie that got a theatrical release.
Yes.
Basically, its main attraction, the main way they're getting to get an audience is... Okay, before anybody tries to slaughter me in a horrible, horrible lynching, I would just like to say, because I see what happens when you diss these people. Literally, God forbid. I'm not a fan whatsoever of those Duck Dynasty fucks.
Neither am I.
I don't care. Okay, I understand that they're, like, they love God, they love Jesus.
I didn't know any of that, to be honest.
Okay, that's fine. I don't care what they believe in or don't believe in. I just think the fact that these people are as famous as they are, and I don't care that they're rich either. I know that's their whole thing. They're rich and religious and people can relate, even though their popularity is embarrassing to me.
Yes, agreed. Agreed completely.
Maybe it's also because of where we're from, and this is like the stereotype that's associated with where we're from.
Yeah.
And I just find that really embarrassing. And I think that's the main reason regardless, that's what they're using to bait you into this movie, because one of them has a couple of cameos throughout the movie. And also, let's see, I imagine while the show is playing, this movie's probably heavily promoted.
I'm sure.
But of course, it just gets really, really... There's a lot of stereotype characters, too.
Yeah, big time.
And while we're on the subject of how many characters are in this movie, this is getting a little technical, but just hear me out. The editing for this movie was really throwing me off.
Okay.
By that I mean, there's so many characters in this movie, and here's the thing, is we're being introduced to them in the beginning, and then they start to have their scenes. But the thing is it's almost like the director thinks we're going to forget about the characters, and he thinks all the characters must be fresh in our minds. So he will cut off a character scene in mid-scene to show us what another character's doing, and then he'll cut back.
Yep.
And that happens a lot. It's like, does he think our memories are that short that we'll forget this character if we're not showing them every 5 minutes? So anyway, and yes, this movie hasn't... Okay. Obviously, as you know from the title, everybody's going to be convinced that God's not dead, right? So we're given a nice big I'm Spartacus scene.
Yep.
Which brings this movie to the big tip of the iceberg that was what this movie's trying to be in general.
Mm.
And yeah, here, okay. We were in there with a lot of deeply religious people, obviously. I think everybody that, like, files into this movie, all the people that are probably in there right now,
Yeah.
are probably going to be, like, extremely moved by this.
Mm-hmm.
Like, didn't you say there was a pastor recently that said he, like, needed a moment after it was over?
Correct.
I'm not going to judge you at all. If you're this movie's target audience, you're probably going to be moved by it.
Absolutely.
Sure. But here's the thing. The way these movies' debates go, I'm not necessarily saying I was rooting for Kevin Sorbo's character. I'm not saying I was rooting for anybody. I'm just saying, here's the thing. They do it just like the movie sets up. The kid speaks his mind, and then Sorbo debates him. And Sorbo has these really, really chop him off at the knee arguments.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem is even though the movie obviously leads us to believe that the kid has won these debates, I guess technically nobody was winning these debates.
No.
I mean, yeah, the kid, like, scores a 1-up on him at the very end, and that's basically how we end this whole charade, but, I was never really, as someone who doesn't go one way or the other, I don't feel any different after seeing this movie. Because, sure, the kid, has some things that could really, maybe stir non-believers into possibly thinking a little wider.
Mm-hmm.
But then you also have the Sorbo arguments that are basically, yeah. But this movie basically manipulates its audience into thinking the kid totally won this thing.
Mm-hmm.
It basically stops at a middle ground, but the movie doesn't tell you that.
Yeah.
So, I don't think it accomplished what it was set out for, but I think the people who see it the people who basically see it for the purpose that it is, will see what they see in it, whatever. That's them, and this is me.
And then there's the Newsboys who have a performance in the movie.
I don't
as
even
well.
know who they are, but I imagine
They're huge. They're huge in Christian rock. So yeah, they're definitely a big part of towards the end of the movie. We'll go with that.
You ready to go in a totally different direction?
I certainly am.
We're not going to Veronica Mars just yet.
So yes, it is coming, folks. I told you it would.
Our next movie is a movie I heard of recently called Cheap Thrills. And I was really intrigued by the plot. Pat Healy, who does a lot of indie movies, he was the other guy in The Innkeepers with Sarah Paxton, and he was the caller in Compliance. He's the main character in this movie, and he is this very meek, walk all over him kind of person. And he's getting evicted from his apartment. He and his wife just had a baby, and now they're about to get evicted, and he just got laid off because of downsizing. So, he's sitting at the bar and has no idea what he's going to do. His life is basically over, when it was supposed to be just starting. And then he runs into his old friend, who is Ethan Embry, who, I don't know if you know his name, but you've seen him a lot. You might know him as Rusty from Vegas Vacation, you might know him as Mark from Empire Records, or you might know him as the bass player from That Thing You Do.
He's also in Can't Hardly Wait.
Yeah.
That's how a lot of people know him as well.
Dutch. That's a great movie.
Yes.
So, and he's basically a lowlife. He, like, you know, gets mixed up with hookers and prostitutes, and he doesn't really have a job, and will pretty much do anything for money, and they meet up. Well, he's got money, but...
He needs more money for drugs.
And they're old friends that haven't seen each other in 5 years, and they meet up at this bar. So they're catching up, and they're starting to become best friends again. And then Pat Healy goes to the bathroom, and he accidentally runs into David Koechner, who is doing cocaine, through a $100 bill that he's just thrown into the toilet.
Champ's moving up in the world.
So he's obviously intrigued by this, so he goes back out, and Ethan Embry has already become friends with Koechner and his wife, who is Sarah Paxton, who's clearly a trophy wife, if you've seen David Koechner and Sarah Paxton.
Yeah.
So they're hanging out with these people at the bar, and Koechner is this total mystery man through the whole movie. That's what's really great and intriguing about this movie. We never find out who or what the fuck he is. He's just a mysterious dude with a shitload of everything. So they go back to his house, and he seems to have an endless supply of money just falling out of his wallet. He has an endless supply of alcohol. He has what he calls his own particular pharmacy.
Nice.
Just everything. And he's very adamant about never calling the cops, so we know something is corrupt and off, but we never really, I don't think this is really a spoiler, we never really learn about him. Mm. He's just this mystery guy, and that's what makes the movie so intriguing through the whole thing. But when the plot really starts to come in, is obviously Ethan Embry's desperate for money. Pat Healy's desperate for money. It's really weird to say Pat Healy because that's Matt Dillon's name and there's something about Mary, but it's the guy's real name. So what Koechner does, Koechner is basically out to just have fun, just have a good night because it's Sarah Paxton's birthday, and they're trying to figure out what to do. So they're just out at this bar having fun, and that's when they start to dare the guys to do stuff for money. Like he said, like it starts off a little like the first person to go over there and say something to that girl at the bar that gets them smacked in the face, I'll give you $300 just right out of my wallet. And it's just like his wallet is like bottomless. He just keeps pulling out $100 bills to hand out whenever somebody does something crazy. But of course, if you've seen the Crazy Kenny episode of South Park, for instance, the dares start to get more and more out of control. And this movie is a black comedy to the absolute max, which is the best possible thing. Because when I saw the plot for this movie, it said the dares get more twisted as they go when they get back to Koechner's house. That's not a lie. I give this movie a lot of credit because when I went into this movie, I basically sat back, turned it on, and said, "Okay, movie, be as fucked up as you possibly can." And it is. This movie is not for the squeamish, or the faint of heart, or the easily offended, or anything of that magnitude. But it's got, and it's also, they do, the comedy does kind of start to take a backseat the darker the movie gets. It's kind of like what some people complain about Very Bad Things, where when a black comedy just goes
too far
black, just pitch black, and the comedy is almost non-existent unless your sense of humor is really, really, really out there. And it just depends with this kind of movie. Because when they first start, they talk about, what's on limits and what's off limits. And obviously Ethan Embry is going to do anything. But then they set the ground rules, and the only ground rule is Ethan Embry says, well, first off, I don't care how much money's in that box, I am not sucking his dick. Which, of course, Koechner replies, there's not going to be, it's not going to be, guy on guy, dicks, ass, anything like that. It's just going to be straightforward dares. So we think. And the movie just gets more and more out of control as it goes. My big problem was, after a while, it kind of starts to... with a movie like this, where it starts to kind of grow serious, generally it would start to get more suspenseful. The problem is they kind of replace suspense with gross out gags after a while. Like, it kind of, like, I mean, the suspense does come back, but there's, like, a whole stretch in the middle where it's just, like, gross out stuff. And it's obvious, I mean, of course, you know, like I said, I was begging this movie to go to the extreme, and it pretty much did. But I was expecting a little, I mean, sure, the gross out stuff's going to be there. It's a movie about dares. But maybe a little, with the kind of movie it was going in the direction it was going, maybe a little more suspense and a little less straightforward gross out.
Mm-hmm. You
can even do gross out and add suspense if you want to, but it was basically suspense, and then for a while it was just pure disgusting gross out, and it was a little, I don't know, it seemed uneven a little bit. Sarah Paxton is really good in it, and she hardly has anything to do. She's basically just there to have, like, really twisted, happy reactions to the shit that happens, which is something I didn't expect out of her because she looks so innocent. Despite her role in The Last House on the Left, which kind of destroyed all the innocence she had.
Yeah.
But, and there's a scene where they pretty much rip off 4 rooms. But that's okay, so. And another thing I'll give it credit for is, I don't want to say too much, but I will just say, the ending surprised me. Like, there's not like a twist or anything, it's just, there's no like big reveal or anything like that. It's just the way the ending played out. I didn't see it coming. So that was nice. So yeah, I would recommend this movie, but you have to have a really, really twisted sense of humor and a really, really strong stomach. So, it's that kind of movie. Our last movie is obviously Veronica Mars, which actually, Cheap Thrills gets a limited release today. Veronica Mars got a limited release last week. And it's like VOD. They're both VOD, I think. As I told you last week, if you saw that video, I never watched the show Veronica Mars. I had planned on it before I saw the movie, but time went a little too fast, and the movie's suddenly here, and so I went to Wikipedia and I read the whole synopsis of the series, which didn't matter too much because the first few minutes of the movie are a helpful recap, which I should have expected.
Yeah.
Even the Fast and Furious movies do that.
True.
So they basically tell you the details you need to know for this particular story. They didn't go into everything, but basically Veronica was this, I feel like I'm explaining it to you because you told me today you didn't even know Veronica Mars existed at all.
I really didn't.
Basically what Veronica was she was, it's Kristen Bell in her 20s playing a teenager, like an underage teenager. Like, the running joke in this is all the guys meeting Veronica again 9 years later are saying, well, now that you're legal. But she was supposed to be like 15 or something.
It's Nancy Drew, but taken seriously.
And her dad basically runs a detective agency, and she basically kind of threw herself into that. And basically just solves mysteries. That's just what she does. Basically to cope with the death of her friend, which started off the series. Her death was played by Amanda Seyfried. And that's what set the whole series off. So, now that I got that on the table, I guess I should probably say, if there were like really, really hidden references here, or like really inside references, clearly they went over my head, so I won't be able to call those out. But as somebody who just saw this as a movie with no experience in the show whatsoever, this is the kind of opinion you're going to be getting. So, she's in the agency and she sees that a girl they went to high school with, who was now a famous pop singer, is dead in her bathtub, electrocuted. But it was murder, not suicide. So she decides to delve into that, and she meets up with her ex, and she has, I have no idea how the guys in her life connect. This is where I really needed the show. But there are like 3 guys in her life that are a big deal, and basically everybody's coming back into her life, and her old group of friends. So that's basically what it is. Obviously I didn't know what to expect from it, because I wasn't sure exactly the tone of the show. Apparently it's a comedy, because this movie is actually really funny through most of it. which I wasn't sure if, I thought maybe it might be that type of thing, but I wasn't sure. Yeah, it's basically your crime comedy thing. And the dialogue is really clever and fast, and there's, it's one of those movies where there's a lot of, like, references. Not just references to the show itself, but to, like, other things. I was very, very impressed with a scene where Veronica's at the bar, and I counted maybe 20 seconds in between a reference to The Accused and then a reference to the South Park movie.
That's nice.
And I was like, wow, that's impressive. Like, there were like 20 seconds that went by and you referenced The Accused and the South Park movie in the same breath almost. And relevantly too. So, the problem is I don't know how to fully make this criticism because I didn't actually watch the show. But I can say a problem with this is it does pretty much feel like an extended episode of a TV show. It's that kind of paper thin plot where it's basically like an hour. It's basically an hour 45-minute version of a funny Law and Order episode. That's basically what it is. Unfortunately, I don't really care for those kind of shows, and I think that was another problem in the fact that I kind of found this movie's pacing off. Like, for being an hour and 45-minute movie that basically feels like a prolonged TV episode, it felt rather long, at least at first. For the first hour or so, I was maybe it was because I was trying to play catch up, I don't know.
Possibly.
But, this movie's secret weapon that's not so much of a secret weapon because her face is plastered on everything, and the show is named after her character. Kristen Bell is a lot more amazing than I ever realized she was. Like, back when she did Sarah Marshall, she's just not somebody that really registered with me. But as I've seen her now, like, when I started watching House of Lies, I liked her better than I did before, but now, like, what she does with Veronica Mars is just brilliant. Both with just her performance in general and comedic timing and delivery, just everything. She's just like, I don't know a scene where she was off. She didn't hit a false note anywhere, and that's brilliant. Her performance in this makes me want to go back and watch the entire show. Which, you know, for me, is something I don't really do.
No.
But I'm definitely willing to give the show a chance.
And then watch the movie again.
I would totally watch this character for 3 seasons, sure. And the movie's okay, but it's really, really, really carried on her shoulders. And she carries it really well. And there's a lot of cameos. I don't know which ones are like I don't know if some people are returning from the series or if they're new characters or not. I didn't really research that, but some people we have in the movie are Kristen Ritter, Gabby Hoffman, whose characters I confused a little bit because they look exactly the same in the movie. Max Greenfield from New Girl has a funny scene, who is one of those people she apparently knew from her past, so I don't know if he was a character on the show at one point or not, or if he's just like someone she met in between the gap in between movie and TV show and movie. Jerry O'Connell, I'm pretty sure, is a new character. He is a corrupt sheriff. And I think he's underrated. I think he's hilarious. So he's always fun to watch. Martin Starr from Freaks and Geeks and the Judd Apatow movies. There are 3 cameos. Like, those are actual parts. There are 3 main cameos. There's probably more that I missed, but there's a guy that tries to pick her up at the bar, played by Justin Long. I believe his name on IMDb is Drunken Wingman, because he's trying to get her to hang out with his friend, and we don't even see his friend. The movie is PG-13, and she gets her F-bomb to Justin Long. Because he goes on this whole long thing, being a wingman and trying to get, my friend back here, and, he's great, and, we should just hang out and party and drink. And the only thing she says to him is she just looks at him and says, "Fuck off." And we never see Justin Long again. And a great little cameo, especially if you know Kristen Bell. No lines. He's just there. There's a guy just dancing in the bar like a drunken asshole, basically trying to turn her on, and naturally she's disgusted by him. Of course it's Dax Shepard.
Of course.
And the best cameo. Ken Marino's in it too.
Nice.
He's an informant that leads them to our next cameo. the next game I was going to talk about. This was actually pretty publicized, so it's not a big secret or anything. He's only in it for 30 seconds, and he plays himself. I'm talking about James Franco.
Yes.
James Franco making weird videos. I love this movie. This movie is great because it's self-deprecating, and it's able to do like pop culture references and all that. But they actually feel relevant within everything. The fact that James Franco is famous for making weird videos of himself is a plot point in this movie. Because of like a surveillance thing. And there's apparently a viral video, we see it too, of James Franco trying to put on tight jeans while saying words that rhyme with orange. And we actually get a few more seconds of James Franco in the middle of the end credits, if you want to check that out. And in this 30 seconds we get the James Franco cameo, we get him and all his Franco-ness, and it's glorious. As like one of Franco's biggest fans, I have to just really geek out for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, there's another plot with her old friend Weevil, who used to be a biker, but now he's like a family man. Weevil, by the way, is played by Francis Capra, who's mainly known for being the kid from Kazam. But he's come a long way, I promise. He has a plot in the middle of the movie that they kind of drag out that kind of, unless I really miss something, it kind of feels really superfluous to everything else in the movie. It's almost like we need to do everything with all the other characters, and we need something for Weevil to do, so let's do this little thing. The plot didn't really seem to connect with anything else, and it just seemed weird and underdeveloped. And they bring another cast member they brought back that I recognized was her friend, not the guy but the girl from Karina and Andre. Yeah, she's much older now.
Yeah, I'd say so.
But yeah, I would say obviously this movie's a fan service, but I think non-fans will be fine too, because I was able to. While I had some problems with it, like the fact that it didn't. I think it would have sufficed as a TV movie very easily. I'm not sure why they went through all that trouble. Like obviously this started the whole Kickstarter thing with celebrities doing it. But you know, I guess that's not too much of a fault because they pulled it off. So, if they weren't really going to do anything to not make it feel like anything other than a prolonged TV episode, I didn't really see a reason for it to have a theatrical release. But, whatever, fans will be pleased. Another fan service is, the end credits song is the show's theme song. So I'm sure people will love that. I'm sure all fans have seen it by now, so I don't really know who I'm talking to. You, I guess.
Alright.
They're just here to criticize me for all the shit I don't know. And yeah, as I was talking about, obviously James Franco's known for being in everything nowadays.
Yes.
And Kristen Bell has a funny referential line that's, she talks about the Kevin Bacon game. And she says, if you're in Hollywood, you're always less than 2 degrees away from James Franco.
Very true.
So yeah, it's definitely better than I thought it was going to be. It's clever, and the self-referential stuff isn't overbearing and doesn't seem too obvious. And helps it. So, but like I said, the absolute thing that helps the movie the most is just Kristen Bell in general. She's probably the whole reason the show worked, if I had to guess. So, even like I said, I'm sure the show and the movie are fine by themselves, but if they didn't have what Kristen Bell brings to this, I don't know if it would be as popular or loved as it is. So, that wraps us up in an hour.
Well, real quick, I just want to run down everything. So, The Muppets, would you recommend it?
Yeah, despite the fact what other reviews are telling you.
Yeah, Muppets Most Wanted is a recommendation. Divergent?
Nope.
God's Not Dead?
If that's your thing.
Cheap Thrills?
If you're really sick and love it.
And Veronica Mars.
Yeah, I think even non-fans will find something to like about it. So.
Alright, so a mixed bag in the video today. Next week, we got an interesting double feature of Noah and Sabotage. maybe some limited releases along with that. Hopefully, Grand Budapest Hotel may be
I'll
coming
probably-
soon. And Backwards.
It'll be really, really early, but I might do Snowpiercer.
Okay.
Snowpiercer doesn't come out till like the end of June, but I might be able to see it sooner.
All right. So that's pretty much all we have. So AJ, parting words.
That's it.